Let me tell you about the American Indian arrow prayer. It's a prayer, they say, that shoots straight to the heavens and lands in the very seat where God resides. And a typical arrow prayer, one of the most common arrow prayers that we say, is when we look to the heavens and say, help. Hasn't happened to me too many times lately, but I wrote about it in my book, how one particular time I'd had a conversation with somebody and the opening question was, who is this fellow Jesus? I didn't know a great deal about him, of course, at the time. And so we had a conversation over a coffee, and as soon as the coffee finished, I asked that person about the prayer that was by the sink on the window, which was called Footprints in the Sand. It's an anonymous prayer. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was along the lines of God give me strength to. I can't remember the words just now, but anyhow, my apologies for that. My memory's a bit slack sometimes in particular things. Footy scores and football players. There's been embarrassing moments, let me say, in regards to footy players and stuff like that. But we like to come here, and this is not. I don't imply that in any way that this is God's seed or anything like that. But I wrote about it in my book, The Holy Grail of Science. In the back last 30 pages or something, I mentioned some things about my own life and how change came about for me in an extremely huge or opposite direction to where I was sprinting through life. In an opposite direction to where I was sprinting through life, yeah. And it was, from there on in, it was onward and upward. And what happened was, I'd had this conversation about Jesus and God and things like that, and I was walking to my motorbike. I got around everywhere in those days with my staffy. He was talking to me today. His name was Nugget, and it was early this morning. I was reporting on rats and mentioned Nugget. Nugget was eating the rats that I was catching in the trap. So there I was walking along after the conversation towards my motorbike in the backyard. I can't even remember parking in the backyard, which is peculiar, but I know I was definitely walking down the backyard towards the motorbike, carrying my helmet in my hand, when I said to myself that, scientists tell us today about dinosaurs, that dinosaur remains, skeletons, etc., petrified and whatnot into stone, 65 million years old, and they can almost tell you, well, in some cases recently, in the permafrost and stuff like that, 10,000-year-old dinosaurs, mammoths, they can tell us what they had for breakfast, but as far as petrified stone dinosaur bones go, they can almost tell us what those dinosaurs 65 million years ago had for breakfast, so to speak. And I don't mean that sarcastically, I mean that's a reality. There's been ferns around the areas found, and cycads and things like that grow today, and they're supposed to be the oldest plant around which dinosaurs ate, Anyway, there were older dinosaurs too, but it's just amazing. And yet this story of Jesus to me was only 2,000 years at the time, an absolute millibleen in time. This was back in 90, 1993 or 92 or something like that, 1992 or 1993. And it really is amazing that, you know, that the history of that chap is handed down, and you know, before that, you know, it was stone tablets. I won't comment too much there, get into any politics, upsets or anything like that, but I just wanted to talk about the arrow prayer. And man, let me say that I said to myself on the way to that motorbike, I don't know where I'm going in life. I know more about that now, but I don't know where I'm going in life, but God give me strength. And in that moment I went to put my helmet on. It was a night just like this. It was around about the same sort of time. There was a full moon and it was behind the cloud, and it was a cloudy night, and the clouds were parted. And it's not some sort of thing where you lay back on a Sunday afternoon on the grass thinking, oh, I think I can see an elephant or a giraffe there or whatever, or a UFO. Anyway, yeah, I saw a cross with square edges and with dots on each apex. Later on I found out that a cross with dots on the apex or roses, etc., signify the start of new life. I found that out, I think, about 2 years later, when I was still talking about it to an Anglican minister who filled me in on what the dots might have represented. Anyway, I simply said thank you in that moment. As soon as I saw it, the cloud closed in, and over the next 3 days I proceeded to have a nervous breakdown. It was just too much for a tradie. And maybe that's good that it's a little bit blacked out now in this recording. No, I wrote about it in the back of my book. I spent 3 days in a psych hospital, and of course I was told that I was now bipolar or some crap like that. Recently they announced in the news that 50% of all bipolar cases are now seen as Aspergic, and what do you know, for a couple of years prior to that coming on the news or wherever it was, current affairs or whatever, on the radio, wherever it was, they didn't say the government, they said professional people, and professional people are psychiatrists and stuff like that, you know, more so than a pen pusher in administration or whatever, but or a speaker, a political speaker or whatever. Some professional person said that 50% of all bipolar cases are now seen as Aspergic, and 2 years or more prior to that, I started investigating Asperger's, only to be able to just maybe understand some of the people around me. I had a fellow that moved in and said he was, did he say? He said on the realm or on the spectrum, or in the spectrum, on the edge of the spectrum or something like that with Asperger's. And I said, I don't see any difference in yourself or anyone else, but yeah, I reckon if anyone's got Asperger's, it might be me, I think is what I said to him. And I didn't fully understand, of course, what Asperger's was at the time. They call it Asperger's syndrome, I think. Anyhow, I had a number of people when I started talking about maybe being Aspergic. I went to the doctor and fill me in on, not the doctor, some people fill me in the community who were Aspergics. I'm not going to use the word sufferers, because there's no suffering in it. I mean, some of the people around you might suffer, but no, I don't find any difficulty with having Asperger's or high-functioning Asperger's. They say that surgeons, the greatest surgeons in the world, are high-functioning Aspergic. It's just an extreme. I guess you could explain it by being an extremist in a similar way to OCD, but not for cleaning surfaces or something like that, and that's not a bad thing, but for being pedantic about facts and exploring theories and stuff like that, getting stuck on a point of fact or a point of theory and exploring, etc. That's how I came to write The Holy Grail of Science over about 20 years, and sat for about 2 years non-stop editing the book, and then wrote some things that were occurring whilst the editing was going on in the back of the book. So anyway, well, I expected it to be just another 2-minute video on arrow prayers, but remember, I sure did have an answer to an arrow prayer. I mean, if I recommend, if you want to find out about God, or if you want to find out if there's something else there, or if you want to find out about the universe, or etc., ask to be gently guided into evidential things about God or about the universe, or whatever you want to deem the power as. And it's not a power. It's not a power. It's truly, absolutely beautiful when you feel God or Spirit or Holy Spirit, etc. Look, I had a guy once who said to me he believed that Ed Harley was his God, and Ed Harley was creating phenomenal moments, events in his life, with finding parts just out of the blue and stuff like that. He said it was way beyond just being uncanny, and his missus agreed, nodded the head and agreed. Whatever you're into and you want to see it as an almighty thing, let's say, then so be it. It could be just your mind that is almighty. I talk about the conscious mind, like Sigmund Freud did, like Einstein did and stuff, and they also talked about the subconscious mind, which is where incredible things and information can come from. But I also talk about the super subconscious, and I also refer to it as the God mind, because the American Indians talked about God, card number 37, the Sacred Path, as great mystery. And I'll tell you, when I lived a life here in Australia, practicing shamanism, American Indian shamanism, and teaching some of the American Indians their own culture and stuff on the spiritual basis, talking to their guides and telling them what their guides wanted to hear. I was invited to the full moon picnics around the mountains and stuff like that, just with a particular painter, one of them on a construction site, but I also had another fellow in my life who moved in and etc. I've spoken about him in the past, just the most extraordinary person you could ever meet in your life. And before I met him, let me say, I don't think I've ever said this, but I was praying to meet somebody who was 10 times more incredible than God. I was on my knees praying for that, and it was only a couple of days later that I met him, the Admiral. Anyway, there's a billion things I could talk about when it comes to God. I saw somebody once of notoriety say to some Dutch students that that God was just an aspect of each of our minds. Oh man, I tell you, hey, God might be, in some cases, an aspect of each of our minds, an incredible part of our mind that I call the super subconscious, or God mind, God force mind. But there is definitely, and I asked on a number of occasions to show me that there is an actual God. I didn't refer to a supernatural being, but an incredible being, and I don't mean the Admiral. I mean, you know, an unseen force, which I physically felt, as an unconditional brand or species of what I can only refer to as love. Loving and an endearing energy. That's a good way to put it. let me tell you one last story before I press stop. And I'm really blackened out here, so I can really tell this story. I was looking into doing a rewire on somebody's house. A pair of teachers, married, kids and stuff. And I did a couple of other things, and they asked me to come in and rewire the house, which it really needed, and I didn't suggest it. I just told them to have a look into it. That cabling's fairly old and stuff. It was a rubber cable, and rubber cable, no matter what, it's going to be in bad condition for the age, and the type of products used to make rubber cable. Anyway, our rubber cable was one of the first cables that we ever used. We did use cloth cable. Anyway, I was heading for a rewire on this low set house where I'd be on my belly the whole time with a drummer cable around your arm or whatever, and pin clips, and what happened was, over the weekend, I was to start on Monday, it had been raining quite seriously, and I remembered that they said, and I'd seen, that the ground could get quite muddy around the edges of the house. And so it was already a damp area, close to a creek and etc., and lots of really good soft topsoil. But it started raining this particular Monday, and so I rang them up and made the excuse. I just really, I can't think of any other time where I pulled an excuse to not go and do a job. And I just didn't, my heart just wasn't in it. And so I said to them that I got some problems with the van. I'll definitely catch you tomorrow if that's okay. And that was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning before I drove over. So Tuesday morning hit, and I said, well, I had the little timber gates about 2.5 feet tall on batten gates open, and was going to head in to the dark and cobwebs and toads and still mud there. There was still quite muddy, and I was about to head in there and I was psyching myself up for it, get in there and get this job done, when the phone rang. The phone rang, and I looked at the phone number and said, well, that's the lad. That's the lad's house. I haven't seen him for a while, and it was the first time that the lad ever called, I think. No, I might be telling porkies there. I might have gotten mistaken, but it's going back a long way, 23 years or so. Anyway, I answered the phone and was walking around the van and having a chat and whatnot, and told the lad I loved him. And I think I might have told him I was about to go into this house and rewire. I'd thrown the roll of power cable under there in a fashion to have it roll out. And I went back to the gates with that hammer in hand and the pin clips and etc. And I tell you, I've remarked about it a number of times that I rolled around in that mud like a pig in the proverbial. I was just as happy as. Yeah. Oh well. Anyhow, that's enough for you, I think. Enough hearing about. I'm not a real God batty around the ears with God. I think if you lead an example and people ask you, are you a Christian or something like that, I say, well, I'm a spiritualist is the first thing that I'll say, and yeah, I'm an ordained minister, and well, that's a godly person. So, but I never normally say it until I'm asked or someone's questioning what I say, etc. And yeah, well, I won't comment too much more to go into a political path, but that's your lot for a Friday. I think it's the 18th of May, 2026. It really is a glorious night tonight. Have a look at it. Look at that sky. There was a rainbow this afternoon. That was north to south, magnetic north to south. That was just set me on fire with joy. And anyhow, I sat on the hill and I watched that rainbow for as long as I can. I had some problems with the car and had to pull over on the side of the road. And then I guess that was convenient. Things happen for a reason. I thought there was a problem with the tyres, so I went up onto the hill nearby, right outside a church. I can't remember what it was called, Kingdom something or other. A fellow who lived with me went to that church and told me that it was a great church and he had made lots of Christian friends there. But I'm not a real practicing Christian. I enjoy going to the Christian churches and enjoying the fellowship or comradeship or association with people there. But I'm not a real practicing Christian. I am a full-on spiritualist, a channel, a medium, and I do channel. That's how the book was written. And then I finally sat down after 20 years of typing things, yeah, I was told not to say that, not to get into the politics about the computers. Fair enough. Yeah, what a glorious night. What a fantastic afternoon. I saw this afternoon, sitting on that hill, I saw 4 more phenomenal facts about rainbows that were they were visual, they were mechanical, and they just absolutely blew my mind with wonder. I can't wait to one day talk about it. When I run my seminars, I'm going to release a new fact. I've got over a dozen new facts. Now I've got close to 20 new facts, and I'm going to release one fact at every seminar that I run. And when I start a new seminar, when I've finished the route or the stops, city stops or whatever, then I'll start releasing another fact. And I'm telling you now, when I get into a audience of people, I'm going to see new facts. That's just the way it happens, and that's why I don't talk about it too much, because I begin to see new facts and etc. And I imagine that all up in 4 or 5 years there's going to be like 60 facts. Oh well, there's 60 facts now, so there's going to be 100 facts. I've got 40 in the video called Rainbows Only Run from North to South, and that's magnetic north to south. The seminars with the magnetics and with the mediumship, an hour of mediumship, a break and a meal in the meal, and another hour of magnetics in nature. And what the idea is to show you evidential mediumship and with names and messages and stuff, and it'll only occur for people who are accustomed or ready, etc. But the other people can feel the experience and whatnot. People who are sitting nearby definitely feel an angelic presence, etc. And so they'll be experiencing things as well. And you'll experience things like you're in a meditation group when you're in the audience or in the congregation, etc. So, rainbows are magnetic, trademarked by under Mick Cox. It is actually Mick Cox, trademarked under Mick Cox. The trademark itself is under my full name, Michael David Cox. And there's 2 trademarks, that it be taught by me, and that's definitely negotiable. But hey, I'm sorry to get a bit political there. I'm always getting carried away. Well, I explained that with Asperger's and whatnot. So what do we got in the night sky? Oh, look, there's the Southern Cross. Apparently Australia and I think parts of New Zealand are the only places that see the Southern Cross. And where's the saucepan? I used to always look at that saucepan and think about cooking when I was a kid. Wow, look at that breeze. It just fantastic, you know. The evening doesn't get much better than this. That's what some guy used to say, not those exact words, but he used to say, the bush tucker man used to say, it doesn't get much better than this. But he was usually cracking a beer open when he said it. Pretty rare I would ever have a beer nowadays, but I had my fair share. I had my fill, is what I normally term it. I had my fill. Yeah, that rainbow was just absolutely glorious, and some things occurred as the rainbow, as a visual part of the rainbow that I'd never known to happen before. It seemed to be coming and going. The second rainbow seemed to be coming and going, and highlighted from one side to the other, and etc. And that's what brought my attention to the other four facts. They were facts, and one of them is just whoa. Oh, I can't believe I saw it. It's just so incredible, right there in front of your eyes. Yeah, and if you can see energy and you're looking at a rainbow, you're going to see something else there as a phenomenon as well. I could see the energy of the invisible colours outside of the seven colours. So I'd like to get you looking, get you all looking at rainbows. The energy is definitely there, and it's simply being highlighted by the water vapour. Hey, enough of the politics, enough of business. It's not really business for me. It's a hobby. It is a God-given gift from me to you. Anyway, hey, how are you?